Okay, good morning, everyone. Let's call this meeting to order. Today is Friday, February 7th. This is the Eastern Shore delegation. Please rise for the saying of the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Vice Chair Jacobs, would you be willing to say a prayer for us this morning?
All right. Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. If you'll bow your heads, dear Heavenly Father, I pray that unity may prevail in this state and on the shore today. Help me to be an instrument of your peace. Help us in this state and this Eastern Shore delegation come together to resolve the issues that affect us all. Amen.
Amen. Members, we need to approve the meeting minutes from January 31st. Could I get a motion in a second?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, this morning we have our annual budget update from Department of Legislative Services. And good morning, team. The floor is yours.
Okay, good morning, delegates and senators. We're going to first start off by giving you an update on our county revenue outlook report. It's Valerie Monroe pulled together all of this information. And it's just going to be a brief update on property and income tax collections, because that's a major component of the fiscal health of local governments. And then following her presentation, I'll be giving you an update on the state aid component and what local governments on the Eastern Shore will be experiencing in FY26 if the governor's proposals are approved. And then we're going to end out our presentation with Arnold Aja. He's going to update you on where you can find these resources on our website. So everything that we are presenting to you today is on the DLS website. So all of your constituents and your local government officials will have access to them as well. So Valerie, I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Hiram. Good morning to the chair and members of the Eastern Shore delegation. So as Hiram mentioned, the County Revenue Outlook Report basically provides a snapshot of the fiscal health of county governments in Maryland. And in preparing this report, we obtained the revenue estimates from the county government's adopted budget for the current fiscal year. And I should let you know that the figures for fiscal 23 reflects the actual revenues collected, while the estimates for fiscal 24 and 25 are based on projected revenues.
The picture on the right.
So in today's briefing, I will just touch briefly on property and income taxes. So if you turn to page 13, the first map on this page shows the per capita assessable base for fiscal 25. The ranges in this map demonstrates the fiscal diversity across the Eastern Shore. For the most part, local property tax revenue is driven primarily by the growth in the property tax base of each jurisdiction. On the map, you will see that of the 9 counties on the Eastern Shore, the highest per capita amounts are in Queen Anne's, Talbot, and Worcester counties. The lowest per capita amounts are in Somerset and Wycomico counties. Later in the presentation, you will see how this impacts the amount of state aid that each of these jurisdictions receive, since approximately 70% of state aid allocations is based on local wealth, which is measured by a jurisdiction property and income tax basis. The second map on page 13 shows the county property tax rates. The real property tax rate is another factor in determining the amount of property tax revenue a jurisdiction collects. This second map on page 13 shows that 4 of the 9 jurisdictions on the Eastern Shore impose a relatively low property tax rate. These are Queen Anne's, Talbot, Wycomico, and Worcester counties. In fiscal 25, of these 4 counties, Talbot County increased its real property tax rate, while Wycomico County decreased its rates. And if we turn to page 16, you will see that this increase in the property tax rate in Talbot County contributes to an average annual increase in property tax revenues over the 2-year period of 11.4%, which is significantly higher than the statewide average of 5.2%. The decrease in the property tax rate in Wycomico County results in an annual average increase of 2.5%, which is below the statewide average. Also shown on the exhibit on page 16, Cecil County is the only jurisdiction anticipating a decrease in property tax revenues over the 2-year period. And this is due to a continuation in the reduction in county property tax rates over several years. Let's turn our attention now to income taxes on page 17. A net taxable income is a tax base used in determining local income tax liability. The first map on this page shows the per capita net taxable income for each jurisdiction. Somerset County has the lowest per capita net taxable income in the state. In addition, 3 other jurisdictions on the Eastern Shore, Caroline, Dorchester, and Wycomico counties, also have very low net taxable income. Because of this, these 4 jurisdictions qualify for state funding under the Disparity Grant Program, which will be talked about in the state aid presentation. On the map, you will also see that Talbot County has the highest per capita net taxable income on the Eastern Shore, followed by Queen Anne's County. The second map on page 17 reveals that 6 of the 9 jurisdictions impose the maximum local income tax of 3.2%. And you can also see this detail on page 19. So if you turn to page 19, this shows that of the 9 counties on the Eastern Shore, Cecil County is the only county that reduced its income tax rate from 2.75% to 2.74% in calendar year 2025. This is the 3rd straight year that Cecil County has reduced its local income tax rate. For the other 8 counties on the Eastern Shore, the local income tax rate has remained constant over the last 5 years. If we turn to page 20, this shows that statewide, local income tax collections are projected to decrease by a minimal amount of 0.3% during the 2-year period. As shown on this page, for 2 jurisdictions, Caroline and Worcester counties, local income tax revenues remain constant over the 2-year period. Cecil and Wycomico counties are forecasting more of a modest decrease, while 3 counties, Dorchester, Queen Anne's, and Somerset counties, are forecasting slight increases. Revenue projections for both Kent and Talbot counties in FY25 are based on historical amounts received in the prior years, excluding the record collections in FY23 and 24 from capital gains. So I want to thank you, and I'll now turn it over to Hiram, and he will discuss the state aid allocations. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to turn our focus to the overview of state aid to local governments. And at the beginning of the presentation, I'm just going to focus on what's in the governor's budget. All of the numbers that we are talking about here has already reflect the proposed reductions in the governor's budget from the BRFA and from his education administration bill. So all of the numbers that we are talking about is what has been funded. So we turn to page 4 of the report. You can see that the 9 counties on the Eastern Shore, when you add up their funding, it will total around $900 million in FY26. Of this amount, around $826 million will be going directly to the local governments. And then there's another $77 million in retirement payments. This reflects around a $48 million increase over the prior year. Okay, on a per capita basis, state aid ranges from around $1,000 in Talbot County to over $3,000 in Caroline County, which receives the 2nd highest amount of state aid on a per capita basis. 4 of the Eastern Shore jurisdictions are ranked in the top 5 in the level of state support received on a per capita basis, and they are Caroline, Dorchester, Somerset, and Wicomico County. Cecil County is ranked 10th, and they're close to the state average. And 4 jurisdictions, Kent, Queen Anne's, Talbot, and Worcester counties, received less state support when compared to the other jurisdictions, and that's due to their relatively high local tax base. Around 70% of state aid to local governments is allocated based on local wealth, whereby jurisdictions with a larger property and income tax base receive less state funding. We're now going to focus on the state aid that goes directly to the county and municipal governments, and that's on page 7. Here you can see that jurisdictions on the Eastern Shore will receive around $84 million in county and municipal aid. This is around a $3 million increase from the prior year. So this funding that goes to the county municipal governments is primarily provided through several key programs: local highway user revenues that goes to both the county and municipal governments, police aid, the police enhancement grant, fire and rescue aid, the gaming impact grants, and disparity grants. So we're going to focus right now on public safety grants. So if you turn to page 22, it provides you with the trend on police aid funding over the last 5 years. And if you turn to page 23, it kind of breaks down the factors affecting police aid funding. You can see that the majority of state funding under the police aid formula is based on population density, whereby the more urbanized jurisdictions with a higher population density receives a higher per capita grant funding. However, a portion of the funding, around 4.4%, is provided based on the sworn officer count in municipalities. And you can see that for jurisdictions on the Eastern Shore, they receive a larger portion of their funding from the municipal sworn officer count. So for example, you can see that in Worcester County, of their police aid funding, around 42% is provided through this component of the formula. So when you're looking at police aid funding, primarily for your jurisdictions, you really need to make sure that this funding component is fully funded. On page 24, the state budget continues to provide enhanced funding under the police aid formula based on the number of violent crime offenses occurring within the county. This is the 4th year that this funding has been provided to county and municipal governments. And as you can see, the per capita funding for jurisdictions on the Eastern Shore ranges from less than $2 in Queen Anne's County, which is the 2nd lowest amount after Garrett County, to almost to $9 in Wicomico County, which is the 2nd highest amount after Baltimore City. As I told some other delegations, this is one program that you really don't want to receive funding under, because it means that you have a considerable amount of violent crime offenses. So this is one program that is nice to receive less funding under, because that means you have less crime in your jurisdiction. Page 28 provides you with a snapshot on state funding for fire and rescue aid. Legislation passed last year at the 2024 session increased overall funding for the program from $15 million to $16.5 million. Each county's funding is based on their share of property tax accounts relative to the statewide average. However, each county is guaranteed a minimum 2% share of total funding. And most of the counties on the Eastern Shore benefit from this minimum funding level. So when you're talking about any changes to fire and rescue aid, you need to make sure that that 2% minimum funding provision is included, because only Worcester County receives funding above the 2% minimum. We are now going to turn our focus to page 29, local health grants. And the Eastern Shore will receive around $28.1 million in local health grants in FY26. Statewide funding for local health departments will total around $117 million, which is a $5.8 million increase. The increase in funding this year is for enhancements for state employees working within local health departments. Since the local health departments on the Eastern Shore have a relatively higher number of state employees compared to the more urban counties, the annual increase in local health grants is higher than the state average for each county, ranges from a 5.5% increase in Caroline County to almost a 10% increase in Worcester County. We are now going to focus on transportation aid, and page 30 gives you an overview on some of the key funding provisions within the transportation funding formula. Page 33 shows you the allocation, the county and municipal allocation of funding under this program. As you can see, in Worcester County, around $2 million will go to the county government, $2.1 million goes to the municipal governments. And you will see that's pretty common throughout the Eastern Shore, that the municipal component of the program is very significant. For example, in Talbot County, $1.2 million will go to the county government, $1.9 million will go to the municipalities. And the reason is, throughout the Eastern Shore, as you know, a large portion of your residents reside within municipalities. There's one important thing to recognize under this program is that the program's enhancements are going to remain in effect for both this year and next year, but beginning in FY28, funding under the local highway user revenue program, which is the local share of the portion of the TTF that goes to this, is going to revert back to the funding level in FY24. Instead of receiving 20% of the TTF revenues that goes to local highway user revenues, you will only receive 15.6%. So you can see that on page 30. So due to legislation that was enacted in recent years, the share of money that is split between MDOT and local governments has increased from 13.5% in 23 to 20% in FY25, in FY26 and FY27. But beginning in FY28, the funding amount will go back down to the level that they received in FY24, which is 15.6%. So what does this mean? It means that next year everything is going to be okay, but beginning in FY28, you will be expecting to receive less funding under this program. Okay. Next, we're going to focus on disparity grants, and page 34 gives you a brief overview of funding under this program. It basically benefits 4 jurisdictions on the Eastern Shore due to their lower local income tax collections. That's Caroline, Dorchester, Somerset, and Wycomico. Year-to-year funding under this program is based on based on the net taxable income collections in each jurisdiction. So if we turn to page 38, you will see that for this year, funding for 2 jurisdictions on the Eastern Shore is going down. Caroline and Dorchester County, their funding is declining. And that's due to a good thing. That is due to the fact that net taxable income levels are growing faster in those 2 jurisdictions than the statewide average. So you can go to the next page. You can see that the increase in the per capita tax yield that was collected in those jurisdictions was above the state average. Caroline County had ranked number 6 in the state, with their annual increase being 5.7% compared to 3.2%. And Dorchester County had a 6.7% increase. However, in Somerset, they only had a 1.8% increase, which is below the state average, and Wycomico was at the state average. So those 2 jurisdictions still will receive an increase in funding under the program. One jurisdiction on the Eastern Shore, Cecil, no longer qualifies for funding under this program, and that is due to the fact that they have reduced their local income tax rate 3 years in a row. That pushes them below the minimum funding level that they are eligible to receive funding under this program. And that has reduced Cecil County aid by around $354,000. And in addition, if Cecil County would have imposed a 3.2% local income tax rate like the other disparity grant counties on the Eastern Shore, they would have received $1.3 million under this program. If we turn to page 40, you would see that Cecil County does benefit from the Gaming Impact Aid grants. They will receive $5.1 million in funding under Gaming Impact grants, and Worcester County will receive around $5.3 million. We will now turn our attention very quickly to education aid. And what's important is that when you look at state aid to local governments, around 75% of the state aid is targeted to the public school systems. The 9 local school systems on the Eastern Shore would get around $675 million in direct aid in 2026, and this is a $35 million increase from the prior year. If you turn, and as you can see on page 41, when you break this down on a per pupil basis, funding for nearly 4 of the jurisdictions is relatively high. Somerset County receives the second highest level of state support at around $18,734. 3 other local school systems on the Eastern Shore, Caroline, Dorchester, and Wycomico, are ranked in the top 6. And Cecil County's per pupil funding exceeds the state average. Page 45 kind of shows you the funding under the main education funding program, which is the foundation and the guaranteed tax-based program. And once again, you can see that support on the Eastern Shore is relatively high for your less affluent jurisdictions like Wycomico, Caroline, Somerset, Dorchester. Page 46 breaks down the funding that will be provided under the enhancements under the Blueprint initiatives. And as you can see, funding under the Blueprint is primarily targeted to 2 components. One is the concentration of poverty grants, and the second is full-day pre-kindergarten. And you can see that for jurisdictions with a high level of poverty, like in Somerset County, they do receive a significant amount of funding under this program. Jurisdictions that we have less poverty, like Queen Anne's County, receives very little funding under the blueprints compared to the state average. Page 47 breaks down the state funding to 3 targeted student populations. You can see around nearly $3 billion is allocated for these at-risk groups of students. Compensatory aid funding is based on students eligible for free and reduced price meals. You also have nearly $500 million to English language learners, and this is a major program for school systems on the Eastern Shore, as we're going to talk about later. And also another around $500 million is targeted for special education. And then 48 kind of shows you the school systems with a higher level of students that are in these, quote, targeted index. And we basically added together the 3 components. And the reason why you're over 100% is that, particularly for students that are eligible for free and reduced price meals, they can also be limited an English language learner and also a special education students. So you can see that for school systems on the Eastern Shore, Somerset, Caroline, Kent, Wycomico, Dorchester, Talbot, almost all of them are in the top. So it really shows that for your public school students, many of them are in these targeted categories. Queen Anne's County tends to have the lowest ranking, and even there, over half the students are in targeted groups. So we'll briefly on our student enrollments. On page 56, it kind of shows you the overall student enrollment growth. 4 local school systems on the Eastern Shore are posting gains in student enrollment. On page 48, on page 57, it shows you the students that are approved for free and reduced price meals. And there you can see that in Queen Anne's County, around 1/3 of your students are approved for free and reduced price meals. And in Somerset County, it's over 70%, and also over 70% in Dorchester and close to that in Caroline. What is interesting is this is a indication of the extent of poverty that we have throughout the state. Over half of our public school system, over half of our public school students in our local school systems are eligible to receive free and reduced price meals. So it really kind of shows you that the kind of needs we have in our school systems. If you turn to page 58, it shows students identified as English language learners. And as you can see in Wycomico and Talbot counties, they're ranked number 3 and 4. Nearly 15% of the students are English language learners. And some of the highest increases from year to year are in Wycomico, Worcester, and Dorchester. And we're going to end this portion of the presentation on page 59, just giving you some information on students receiving special education services. So I want to go quickly back to page 11 that shows some of the detail of the governor's proposed reductions to local funding. Now, once again, all of the numbers that I went over are funded and are not affected by these proposed reductions. But on page 11, it shows you the governor is proposing a $262 million reduction in state aid. Some of these reductions, the local governments are going to have to pick up the cost. We'll talk about that later. In addition, the governor is proposing to shift additional funding, additional costs for property assessments at the local level. If you turn to page 12, this kind of breaks it down on a county by county basis of the state aid reductions and also the county's cost to pick up the property assessments. In total, these of the $283 million fiscal impact to local governments, around 143 million of those costs are going to have to be picked up by local governments. And that's shown on page 13. Well, this is page 13 is breaking down. Let's go back to 13. It's breaking down the state aid reductions by program. And then page 14 is showing you what the local governments are going to have to pick up in additional cost. So local governments, the county governments will be expected to pick up a higher portion of teachers' retirement and community college retirement cost. So in total, that's around $100 million. So just picking one of the Eastern Shore jurisdictions of Caroline County, the county government will have to pick up $509,000 in teachers' retirement cost and another $52,000 in community college cost. In addition, for property assessments, the current cost split is 50-50. The state pays 50% of property assessments. The local governments pays 50%. The governor is proposing the local governments to pick up 90%, with the state only covering 10%. That's an additional $20 million statewide. The impact on the Eastern Shore is Caroline County has to pay another $147,000. Queen Anne's County, $215,000. Wycomico, $418,000. And then finally, for non-public placements, the state is also proposing the local school systems to pick up a higher share of those costs, which is $25 million statewide. The impact, like on Worcester County, is only $2,000. So for some of the jurisdictions on the Eastern Shore, this may have less of an impact. As you can see, some of the bigger impacts are in Baltimore and some of the larger jurisdictions. Caroline County is only $12,000. So the non-public placement shift may not be that big of an impact for local school systems on the Eastern Shore. Some of the bigger impacts are the teachers' retirement and the property assessments. I think if we turn to page 16, this is showing just the recent property assessments across the state. So the sense is that particularly under the property taxes, that the revenue picture for local governments are going to continue to be relatively strong. Some of the local governments have been receiving an additional significant increases in revenue collections under the property tax. And you can see that beginning in 2023, Property assessments have been going up statewide of around 20% at each reassessment cycle. So we do believe that property assessments will still remain relatively strong going forward, and this will enable local governments to collect additional revenue. So I'm going to turn it over to Arnold so he can give you an update on what's on our webpage, and then we'll open it up to questions that people may have. And feel free to reach out to us, and we can always stop by to go over any exhibits that you would like for us to give you additional information on. So Arnold?
Yeah, thanks, Hiram. So I know this was a lot of information to digest, and because of that, I briefly wanted to show you how you can access this information and all of our local government resources on our webpage. So starting from the Maryland General Assembly website, at the top, you click Legislative Services. This will redirect you to the DLS website. And to access the state aid resources, you would click the Budget tab, followed by the State Aid to Local Governments tab. Here you can see all of our state aid resources broken down on the left into sections. Under state aid reports, I just want to note the 2-year charts by program, and this will provide information for fiscal 25 and fiscal 26 by area and by program. And this information is provided for the state and also for each county. So example, this is for Caroline County. You also have access to the report that we just presented on under session reports. And also one other thing I want to highlight is state aid data downloads enables users to download this information in Excel format going back to 2011. And just want to emphasize that all of this information, like Hiram said, the stated information reflects the budget as introduced, and we will update this for the legislative appropriation. I also want to show you how you can access some of our local government reports, and those are located in another area. So you would have to click on the Policy Areas tab and then the Intergovernmental tab. And so here, you can find some of our annual fiscal reports under Annual Reports. And here you can see the County Revenue Outlook report that was presented on today. I just also want to bring your attention briefly to the Local Government Overview Report. And in light of today's presentation, this is a really rich report, and it has a lot of different information and insights into local government finances, local tax rates, local revenue growth. And I guess a pertinent exhibit to show today really quickly would probably be the property tax rates, largest municipalities. And Hiram, if you want to.
Yeah, so what I want to mention here is that when we look at just the county tax rate, for example, you take Talbot County, it could be kind of misleading to say that you have a very low tax rate because nearly half the residents in Talbot County resides in a municipality. So when you look at Easton, the county rate is 65 cents, but the municipal rate is 52 cents. So when you look at their combined county municipal rate, it's $1.18, which is very similar to the combined rate in Gaithersburg and Rockville in Montgomery County, and not much below the combined rate in Annapolis. And in some jurisdictions on the Eastern Shore, you go up to number 3, Salisbury, you have a very high rate. You have an 85-cent county rate and over $1 rate, which is around $1.90, which is not too below the rate in Baltimore City. So I think when you're looking at property tax rates on the Eastern Shore, you have to kind of look at both the combined county municipal rate for municipal residents, because you have to put the two together to get the total impact, due to the fact that such a large percentage of the residents on the Eastern Shore are in municipalities. And in the rural counties, it's the municipalities that provide some of the more urban services that the county governments do not provide. So you need to have a complete picture. And I think the only other local government overview chart, Arnold, if you go to the public school funding, that's something that people are very interested in, looking at the state, local, and federal funds. And so we have all of that available under public school funding. So you can see your local school system and how much the state provides on a per pupil basis, how much the local school systems, and the total funding. So, so I think that's very important. So let's go to the per pupil state and local. Oh, we're running out of time. It just kind of shows you the revenues, and number 2, Arnold, kind of ranks everyone with their state and local funding. So there you can see that Worcester County is number 2 in the state with total funding, and Somerset County is number 3. And what is interesting is their neighboring jurisdictions. Worcester provides most of their funding comes from the local government, whereas Somerset County, most of the funding comes from the state government. And this kind of shows you just the offsets of how our funding formulas work. So that will conclude our presentation, I think, and we're open for any questions that you may have, but we're willing to stop by your office and talk with anyone if they have in-depth questions.
Okay, thank you very much. And we do have questions, and if we go over time a little bit, that's okay. So we want to make sure we get members' questions answered. First up, Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation this morning. There's a lot of information to try and digest pretty quickly. But I do have a question that is asked very frequently in Kent County, where my resident county. And it was on your charts today. The question that I get frequently, and was on the charts today, the evidence was there. How can Kent County have the 3rd highest wealth, but 4th highest in free and reduced meals?
Okay, so what's happening there is
I'm
that
not gonna
when you
ask you
look
how
at
you are,
local wealth, and this is the
'cause
same
I know
issue that affects Talbot County. You're not measuring the wealth of your residents. You're measuring the wealth of the tax base. And so what's happening in Kent County is that if we go back to the state aid report, Arnold, we can pull together we do have a chart that kind of answers that question. Great. On page 53, there it measures both wealth on a per capita basis when you measure it based on the residents, your total number of residents versus the number of students you have. One thing that's impacting Kent County is that you have the lowest share of residents that attends public schools. I think we have that. So you have your tax base can go much further with the number of students you have enrolled in your public schools. And you can see that totally on a per capita basis, you're ranked 9th, but on a per pupil basis, you're ranked number 3. And that's due to the lower number of students that attends Kent County public schools. And that is shown on page 61. Statewide, around 14% of the county population are public school students. In Kent County, it's only 8%. Another factor that I think affects this in both Kent and Talbot County, and I can provide you with this chart, and this may explain things pretty well, is that, for example, in Kent County, the median household income is around 73% of the state average. And in Talbot County, it's only 80% of the state average. So for your typical residents, you do have the income level is below the state average. But what is causing, I think, in both Kent County and in Talbot County situation is your property tax base. Both in Kent and particularly in Talbot County, you have a very small subset of very affluent residents. And they generate a significant amount of tax revenue. And I just pulled out an exhibit for Talbot County for income tax returns that are filed with the state that have incomes above 500,000. So you're talking about pretty wealthy people. In Talbot County, they account for 2.6% of total returns, which is one of the highest in the state. Only Montgomery County has a higher share, but they generate 35% of the county's income tax revenue. So 2.6% of the people are generating 35% of the revenue. So what's happening is we're not measuring, and put that into perspective, Somerset County only gets 5% of their revenues from these higher end individuals. So we're not really measuring the wealth of the everyday we're measuring the income generation of Talbot County. And as you can see from the County Revenue Outlook report, even though Talbot County imposes a much lower income tax rate, they generate so much more on a per capita basis than the other jurisdictions. It's just the mix of very affluent jurisdictions. And they're not the majority. They're a very small subset of your jurisdictions in both in Talbot and in Kent, but they generate so much revenue for the county government. And so that is what when we talk about local wealth, it's not the wealth of the residents, it's the income ability of your county governments to generate both income and property taxes.
All right. I appreciate that answer. I've got more questions, but we got a lot of colleagues with their hands up, so I'll pass it to my colleagues. Thank you again for your information.
Delegate Hornberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Hiram, thank you for this presentation. My question relates to the movement of the funding for retirements for the teachers from the state to county. Yesterday, we learned that one of the proposals is to move that from 50% to 90%, as you articulated in your presentation. When or if will those numbers be updated on the presentation that you gave us, the PDF?
For the teachers' retirement proposal?
Yes.
Okay. I'll need to look into that just to see.
We can do a back of napkin, calculation, moving it from 50 to 90, but having it
Right. Is that the SSTAT, the property tax, or the teachers?
The teacher pension.
Okay. I'll have to talk to our people to get that information to you.
Thanks so much.
Right.
Delegate Sample Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, DLS, for the presentation. One of the areas that I'm constantly getting phone calls now on is the special education funding and disabilities cut that was proposed in the governor's budget. So I don't know if you can extrapolate how much federal funding we get for special education, and is the proposal from the governor to cut some disabilities funding, how does that all affect our budget for our counties? If that makes sense. I'm trying to figure it out, because the reason I'm bringing it up is because I know Dorchester County had recently stated publicly that they have a $10 million deficit. And after school programs, special education, some of those things have come to the forefront of constituent concerns. And I'm just trying to figure it out, like how much are we talking about at the state level of being concerned? And then certainly what does that look like? I know you probably can't answer that, but at the federal level, if there are cuts there too,
Okay.
what are we looking at?
Okay. So Arnold, if we turn to page 13, so the good news is for the public school systems, for the state aid reductions that he is proposing under the collaborative learning initiative on page 13, None of this funding affects special education. So there were reductions in collaborative learning that impacted the foundation program, the compensatory aid program, the English language learners program, but this reduction did not affect special education funding. So there has been no proposed reductions for special education funding. I think you're referring to reimbursements for DDA providers, and that does not affect funding to the public school system. So there has been the governor has not proposed any reductions in his administration bill that affects special education funding. That is the one area that has been held harmless by his proposed reductions and postponing the implementation of the blueprint. None of that has affected special ed funding.
That's good to know. So we're just strictly talking about the DDA reimbursements and
Correct.
programs that are within DDA of being of concern.
Right. Yeah, public schools are not being affected except the non-public placements. That is the one piece of special education is that the locals are going to have to pick up a larger portion of those costs. But in Wicomico County, it's only $4,000, and in Dorchester County, it's $47,000. And so and that's in 26. And if you can look on page 9 of the report, even after that reduction, Dorchester County will be getting an additional $232,000 in state support for public schools. So all of these numbers you see on page 9 already takes into account the proposed reductions that you see on page 13.
Okay. All right. Thank you kindly.
Delegate Ernst.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hiram, thank you. It's always interesting. I get more questions as you speak. I'll be quick. I wanted to talk about the governor's proposed, or he's record increased funding to education in Maryland. Is that mandated from the blueprint, or can you explain that briefly?
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, the governor's saying we have record funding to education. And I'm wondering if that's mandated from the blueprint, or can you explain that a little bit?
Correct. Most of the education funding that's in the governor's budget is formula-based. So most education funding is formula-based. He's required to put that in. All of these proposed reductions that affects public schools that we show on page 13, those are contingent on legislation. So even the non-public placements, the collaborative learning, even the retirement payments are all contingent on legislation that the General Assembly has to approve. So yes, he did provide some enhanced funding, but most of the state aid that's in the governor's budget is formula-based, and it's required to be there. And these reductions need to have statutory approval, or they can't be. So the General Assembly ultimately has to decide if they want to go along with these proposed reductions.
Okay, so the $145 million he's pushing down to the counties, how does that affect that number that's being funded?
So let's go to the page 12. So the locals are going to have to pick up around $144 million of the reductions. So the property assessment cost share, that's as an additional cost that is not incorporated in the state aid numbers. So that will be an additional $20.9 million. The non-public placement cost, if we go to page 14, of the $144 million of the state local cost, the locals will have to pick that up. Those are additional costs that the locals will have to pick up. And so if you want to net that out, we were saying that state aid was increasing by the direct aid is going up by $533 million this year. That 143, you can probably net from that. So even with this cost shift of 143, state aid is still going up probably by $400 million, because their direct aid is going up by 533 million. But the issue is you're dealing with the county and municipal aid. Some of this cost shift, for example, the property assessments, that is from county municipal governments. So their state aid is only going up by 14.4 million, and they are required to pay an additional 20.9 million in property assessments and an additional $100 million in teachers' retirement. So when you take into account their increase in state aid versus this cost shift, county governments are at a negative, is what you can look at, because most of the increases in state aid is for public schools. And the only cost shift to the public schools is $25 million. Their state aid is going up by around $500 million this year, and the only cost shift for them is $25 million. So it's the county governments that are incurring probably the brunt of these cost shifts.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have more, but thank you. I appreciate the conversation.
Okay, everyone, thank you very much. We're going to move on to the next subject. Let me just say this. I want to thank DLS for giving us the information. Obviously for us as policymakers, this is tools that we use to stand on the House or the Senate floor and fight for our interests. It's no doubt in my mind that one of the challenges we have goes to what Delegate Ahrens was saying, which is we are finding the state of Maryland very willing to pass unfunded mandates down to the counties. And the part, Hiram, where you're talking about on page 16, the assessments, there are some strong assessment policies moving forward. And what this means really for Eastern Shore citizens is their tax rates, their rates on their property are going up. And that's how we're unfortunately going to be funding Maryland. So not only is it a tax increase that we're going to be talking about at a state level for the state budget, it's that citizens for these property taxes is going to fund a lot of the unfunded mandates coming down to the counties. And that's my overall take on it. And many of our members are very concerned, but it's very helpful to get facts. I mean, that's Chris Adams and different delegate senators bringing their political hat forward, but it's nice to have the facts, and we appreciate your time today to do just that.
Thank you. And once again, we're open for any questions down the road that you may have. We're more than willing to reach out to anyone, even your local governments, if they have questions.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Next up, members, we have Delmarva Power, and I want to thank Delmarva Power for doing this. This was a last-minute request to come on. I will remind everyone here that the meeting and questions that may come to Delmarva Power are just for us as members. So the public that's here and others sort of already know what the rules are, but I'm just sharing with you that we want to get information. We want to get some tools and ways to go back to our citizens, because Delmarva Power, as you know, we're getting a lot of questions on this. But again, I thank you for coming on, and let's see how this dialogue goes forward. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Delegate Adams. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ann Clace, and I'm the Senior Manager for State Legislative Affairs for Delmarva Power. First, I'd like to thank the delegation for inviting us to present this morning. We know many of you have been receiving calls and emails related to constituent bills. So we really appreciate the partnership that we have with the delegation, and we are certainly committed to continuing to assist you as you work with your constituents and our customers. So before we get started, I did and turn it over to Marcus to present. If it's okay with you, Delegate Adams, I'd like to just do a brief introduction so the delegation knows who is with us today from Delmarva Power. Is that okay?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, Allison, we can go ahead and start with you.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chair Adams and members of the delegation. I am Allison Black-Woodson, Senior Manager of State Government Affairs with Delmarva Power. And as Ann said, we are happy to be with you all today to provide some information regarding how we are working to support your constituents and our customers regarding their energy assistance needs.
Poetry?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the delegation. Poetry Deal, newest member to the team, State Affairs Manager. So again, just happy to be here. And I know we've met with a couple of you and we'll continue to help assist you as we're experiencing some energy crisis here in the state.
David?
Yes, good morning, everyone. So glad to be here. I'm David Fields. I'm the Director of PHI Customer Care. and glad to be here to be speaking with Mr. Chairman and the members of the delegation as well. Thank you.
Yep, Rob?
Good morning, Chairman and members. My name is Rob Lemming. I'm a director in our regulatory department and happy to be here with you all today and answer any questions that you all might have that I can help out with on our end.
All right, and then we will turn over to Marcus Beal, who will introduce himself and then go through the presentation.
Okay, good morning, and thank you again for having us. I'm Marcus Beal, Director of External Affairs. Looking forward to taking you all through this presentation and having the discussion. So appreciate it, Ann. Let's go ahead and go to the first slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so obviously we are all aware of why we're here. And I want to thank you all for just the engagement over the past about 3 weeks where we've had escalated calls, emails, social media posts, really around this high usage, high bill issue. We heard you loud and clear. And the first thing, there's a reason why this is our first slide. We really just want to make sure that it's very clear of what we're doing immediately to help assist our customers. So you'll see a list here of different actions that company got together and we made immediately available for our customers in terms of additional support at this time, recognizing that there are, our customers are impacted by this. So the company is waiving late payment fees for both January and February. And we're really just working with our customers across the board to provide longer periods for repayment. We've suspended disconnections for non-payment in February. And of course, that's a dynamic situation, so we will look at extending that if the conditions persist. We've waived deposits for our disconnected customers who are trying to restore their service. Again, understanding the record cold and also, the current situation that our customers are in. Really want to give every option to keep our customers in service and safe. We've extended our call center hours. So David Fields and his team, we understand that some folks are working, during the week. Saturdays tend to be a nice day of the week for folks to catch up on mail, bills, et cetera. We want to make sure that we're there for our customers. They can come in, they can call us on Saturdays for the foreseeable future. So really, as long as needed, we're going to keep those Saturday hours open and have a person, a real human being that, our customers can call and speak with if they have questions about their bill, need to enter into a payment arrangement, or, need any kind of assistance or service during this time. We have updated our webpage as well. So if you go there, it looks a little bit different. We recognize the significance of this event. And it's very clearly labeled that, customer assistance events, different educational materials that folks can access, and really just making it, a one-click access to assistance and information for our customers, and really you, if you're looking for additional info. In addition, again, we want to be there, meet our customers where they are. We are hosting a number of customer education and assistance events. And we're very specific about that education on energy savings and their bill and assistance. We do have, different types of customers. They're all different. Every bill is different. Some of our customers, really, we're just trying to make sure they understand what they can do to help control their bill. And others, we want to make sure we're sharing information on the different types of assistance that's available for them, both from the company and external programs. You'll see there listed Kent Island was really where we saw the first uptick in social media activity regarding usage. And we really wanted to make sure we held an event central to that area. So that is our next upcoming event next week on the 12th that will be taking place at the Kent Island Library. And again, we'll have our customer service representatives there, a number of our employees there. Customers can literally bring their bill in. They can sit down, talk to a person, and we can go through their bill, see what they're eligible for in terms of different savings programs, and really, again, just have that one-on-one interaction. And of course, all of you are welcome as well. Next slide, please. Not going to spend too much time on this slide, but I do want to take a moment just to make sure that we're couching who we are in this community. So, we're your neighbors. We have been here for over 100 years. Our primary focus is really making sure that we're delivering safe and reliable electricity to our customers in an affordable manner. We are 100% committed to our customers, to you all as well. Our customers are your constituents, so we do want to make sure that we are available. I know you see Ann and her team in person in the halls, so they can answer your questions. You can always reach out to us directly if you need us in any manner to help support discussing anything with our customers or your constituents. Next slide, please. So one other, very important option that we have available, we recognize, look, this has been an unusually cold spell that we've experienced. And, I can say I've driven past bodies of water that are frozen that I typically don't see frozen in the region. We all know, the teens are not, a temperature that we're used to here on the Eastern Shore. For extended periods of time. We saw the snow that was lasting, a week, 2 weeks. You're still seeing the ice. But from a system standpoint, the significance here, we actually set a winter peak in electric usage, a record for us all time, January 23rd of this year. So the previous record was due to the polar vortex in 2014, 2015 of 4,098 megawatts. We hit 4,106 megawatts on the 23rd. And again, that was an all-time winter peak. So you don't have to take my word for it. I'm not a meteorologist, but I can tell when it's cold, and we have experienced significant, unusually cold temperatures, which really is driving the vast majority of these discussions. It really boils down to usage. But we recognize, the seasons are here. It gets hot, it gets cold. We do offer budget billing, which kind of levelizes a customer's bill, so we can help to avoid those high peaks and really just smooth out that payment curve. I'll pause there. I see Delegate Hartman, please. You have a question?
No, go ahead and complete your presentation. He's just getting in the queue.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you. Next slide, please. So here, I just want to talk a little bit about, the different options that our customers have to really manage their bill, get access to energy savings tips. And the thing I want everybody to walk away with here is that we're going to meet our customers where they are. They're all different, as I mentioned. For our customers that are, more comfortable looking at their paper bill and getting information that way, we have a lot of detailed information on the bill. For those that are a little more tech savvy, we of course have My Account, where we're leveraging our smart meter data to present additional information to our customers. We get hourly usage, so we can actually present very helpful charts, compare your usage from last month to the previous year. And really, that's a great tool for our customers to set alerts as well. If you are on a budget and you want to know when you reach a certain threshold for electricity usage and or your bill. And then, of course, some folks just want to talk to a human being. So from a customer service standpoint, as I mentioned, those Saturday hours, but also every day, right? So during the week, if you want to call us and talk to a person, of course, we have our customer service folks available to walk through. Some of these bills I've seen can get up to, 25 pages because of some of the information that we're required to share on them. And we know that there are questions about each of those lines, and we'll move on to the next, to a future slide. We'll show some of that and we'll walk through that. I want to be clear about a couple of things here. So I'll start with, our bill and some changes that were recently made in November. So there are two main components that impact a customer's bill, and really those are supply charges and those are delivery charges. Now, we did make a change to the bill presentation in November of 2024, and kind of no good deed here. We were attempting to be much more transparent about your energy usage and actually made a change to show your supply portion and your delivery portion of the bill. Now, everybody should be aware that Delmarva Power, Exelon, we are not in the generation business. So the supply side, that is a pass-through cost. We don't own coal plants, we don't own solar, we don't own nuclear. So strictly, that is a pass-through cost for energy suppliers. Now, we have our standard offer service, which we basically procure that energy through PJM. As you guys are all aware, there's an auction for that. basic supply and demand. If we have a lot of generation options, and that's not just us, any energy company, the more generation units that you have available, the cheaper the energy is. As that number dwindles and there's less supply, the costs go up. We do have third-party suppliers as well. And again, we will put that on our bill for those third-party suppliers, but that is, again, a pass-through cost. The delivery charge, which again is not new. So it's a little confusing as we made that very prominent on the bills beginning in November. Hey, you have a delivery charge, you have a supply charge. That was always there. We just had it bundled under electric service. That was it. That's how you saw it previously. Now calling that out and showing the breakdown on the bill in a graphic, customers were surprised and thought, hey, this delivery charge is new. What is this? The delivery charge takes care of all of our costs. So we do own all the infrastructure, our employees that maintain, upgrade, and service our poles, wires, substations, you name it. And then this chart here really just breaks down, again, the difference between those electric supply costs and then those delivery costs. So we want to be very, very clear about that. Next slide, please. And I won't drain this, but this really just breaks down again, the delivery versus supply. And again, just noting that, we did go through a bill redesign effort. We do focus groups. Customers said they loved it. And, I think initially the surprise of seeing the delivery charge and the supply charge broken out, unfortunately generated a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, a lot of issues for both you and our folks. And, we'll continue to be front and center and answer these questions and be present, for our customers. Next slide, please. And here, this is a graphic that really breaks down each line item on your bill. And as I mentioned, these bills can get lengthy. Not everybody pays attention to every line, but we do want to make sure that customers understand each and every part of their bill. So I know our customer communications team is working hard to get this graphic up and available on our website so the customers can actually see that, or you and your staffs, if you'd like to get a little more educated on the breakdown of the bill components, and really just itemize the next 3 or 4 slides here. Really breaks down every line item on the bill and explains exactly what it is, so the customer can see, hey, customer charge, distribution charge, any surcharges, etc. And again, even working in the industry for 20 plus years, when I look at the bill, sometimes it's like, oh my goodness, we have a lot of information here. These bar charts, the information is there and can be very helpful and can show, hey, my usage based compared to last month, here it is in real time. I can see that bar chart, or even compare it to previous years. It's there. And we're also here to make sure we can walk through that with our customers to make sure we're explaining and they understand, right? There's no new hidden fees. We can't just change rates without going through the formal regulatory process, and really just want to make sure that we give every opportunity, put that online, use our technology, make sure folks are aware. So I'll pause there. I see a number of hands, and we're happy to take any questions both now and want to be respectful of your time as well. So we are 100% available to meet you where you are if we can follow up on the conversation.
Okay, thank you very much. And we're going to ask, if possible, for you to send that PowerPoint presentation to our offices or my office, and I'll forward it through. That way we can share it with consumers as we're dialoguing with them. First up is Delegate Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the presentation today. I've got to tell you, one of the most frequent emails we're getting right now is regarding Delmarva power bills, at least for me in my district. My day ended last night with a call from a constituent that started this morning a few minutes before 8. So it's a real hot topic. Help me understand, and you can explain to them all you want about the cold weather, the number of heating days and all of that. But the transportation cost, which is all Delmarva, is what's really hitting them hard. And we're hearing a lot of complaints about. Help me understand the rate increases that you've had over, we've had 2 years of mild winters. Give me more to help me explain to the customers why they're in the situation they're in. And a lot of my customers have power from another utility that's member owned, and they're comparing their bills and they're not seeing it in the other power company. So
give me more than cold weather to explain to them why their bill is where it is.
Yeah. So it's easy for us to kind of just say, hey, it's been cold. We all know that, right? Heat pumps are less efficient, et cetera. We dissected a lot of bills, and I know you guys are probably getting bills sent into you as well. And, it is very important to note, I had a state senator that sent a bill over and kind of they did their own calculation to say, hey, here's why this was higher. When we break it down in the most simple terms, we created a pie chart for that one, and we're happy to help you with that if you get individual complaints. There was an increase in the bill of $69 for that customer. And 92% of that increase of that $69 change was due to usage. So, it really is notable of how significant the weather can impact customers' usage. The other portion of that bill, the 8%, was really driven by rate changes, the surcharges, things of that. So the real lion's share of this really is driven by usage. And again, we've got to go customer by customer. Everyone is different. And really walk through that. And again, we have the tools. We can literally show, hey, were your kids home for the holidays? How many people were you hosting? It's that kind of time of year where sometimes looking at your daily, hourly usage can kind of trigger that aha moment of, oh yeah, that's right. We did have this. So it sounds like it's just an easy out, and it's not intended to be. We have to dig into the data. We have a lot of folks that work very hard at doing that. And again, we're happy to do that with each individual customer. Each one is different, but it is really the vast majority of that is driven by usage. Now, there are other charges, right? You guys are all aware of when we have a rate case. That is a very public event. When those rates change, there's hearings. We send you press releases. That's not something that happens under the cover of darkness, right? That has to be a public process, public comment. There's a very, very strict process of how that happens. So our rates, we can't just change them on the fly, right? And then other elements that impact the bill, we are a publicly traded company. We are investor owned. So policies that are passed, we are subject to adhering to those, from our officials. So our co-op partners that we, see in the region, we've heard that comparison, and I kind of grit my teeth because I'm like, they're two different models. A cooperative is a totally different business model. They're really like user owned essentially. So it's very hard to go apples to apples there. It's not quite the same, but we really do strive to be as affordable as possible. Again, through that procurement of energy process, it's great for our customers when energy costs are low from that supply standpoint. And then we, of course, are very prudent and diligent about what we spend to maintain and upgrade the system and really try to keep those costs low.
So I understand everything that you said, and maybe to make it easier, can you recap some of those rate increases that you guys have enjoyed so that it helps us understand? And we can tell the customers, hey, it's cold weather. They've only had, in the last couple of years, they've had X number of rate increases. So that's not the case, if that truly isn't the case. So can you help me and share your latest rate increases? I know the process. I know you can't just say, hey, this is what we're going to do. It's PSC regulated. But over the last, let's say 2 years, can you share the rate increases that you've enjoyed?
Yes, absolutely. So I don't have them all right here in front of me, but I think I can talk with Ann and team and make sure we get you kind of a list of, say the last, few years of rate cases. They do take a long time, so it's not something that necessarily happens, back to back to back. But I think we can get you the history of those, and you can see exactly the impact over time to customer bills.
That would be perfect. Thank you.
Will do.
Delegate Harmon, I did just want to note too, you should have some correspondence from our office as well, where you will have that in writing with some of the increases that have gone into effect starting in January. So we'll make sure that you definitely have that. But I know there should be something in your inbox as well.
Just a little bit of history. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, Delegate Aaron's.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marcus, a real quick question. Could you help me with, because the biggest thing we're getting hit with is 100% increase, 50% increase. Can you tell me what Delmarva's costs have increased over last year to this year? Your cost, to do business, not our policies cost, but what have your cost increased?
Sure. So, as everybody knows, we have dealt with increased costs of materials, right? So transformers, poles, the same things that increase at the grocery store for all of us, they increase across most markets. So I don't have the exact percentage increase in terms of our impact from inflation on our materials. But we do know that materials are more expensive for us.
What I'm trying to get at, let me help you on that. What I'm trying to get at is we have policies in effect in Maryland right now that are just making our cost of energy skyrocket. Our renewable cost, what we have to buy from other states, our policies far about generation, all that stuff. I guess everybody's out there blaming Delmarva. And I believe you do have some responsibility here, but I think that the energy policies are affecting this in a much greater way than Delmarva's actually has an increased cost over the year. Is it 10% more? We've had years where we've increased our usage by double, and it's never been this dramatic. And that has to relate to something. And I think that's kind of where people are at. You're getting blamed a lot. Some you're responsible for, but I don't believe all of it.
Sure. So, we did a little analysis, and again, each customer's bill is a little bit different, but kind of high level, we saw about a 1% increase on bills due to supply, right? And that's again, the cost of energy itself. We had about a 2% due to kind of those policies that you're mentioning, different programs. And then there's a variable rate. It's about 6% in our actual distribution, really, and some of that is tied to our BSA costs, and that's something that's in place that sort of regulates our revenue, so that we can't swing too high. That can also be a credit for customers as well. So, again, even with the significant increase in what customers see as their bill, that usage, and just, we've seen a number of bills across my desk over the past 3 weeks where we look into it. Okay, why is this customer's bill this much higher? And we've seen upwards of 200% increases in usage alone. And again, the Eastern Shore, great area, beautiful, mild temperatures, usually a lot of heat pumps as well. And without getting into, HVAC engineering, I think once we're below 32 degrees, and typically in the Bay region, I don't really see us sustain those under freezing temperatures like we have recently. Those heat pumps do get very inefficient. That a 200% increase in usage sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. And that does translate to, unfortunately, the cost for our customers.
So because I switched to Energy Star compliant, and I'm pushing to our policies of electrification, you're saying that we have not come very far as making our heat pumps more user-friendly or more efficient based on that.
It's kind of a little bit of everything, right? We all need to take those efforts to be more efficient. Certainly helps. An LED bulb is definitely better than an old school, right? But home energy conservation, that is a positive. The less energy and strain we use and put on the system, I think the better for everyone. But it's a balance.
So you're saying, okay, you said that you mentioned about 9% is what you gave me of increases of things of cost, but we're still seeing double. And you're saying the rest of that is all in the amount of energy we're pulling off. It's doubling what we're doing, and those costs have gone up.
Right. For some customers, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Sure thing.
Delegate Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everybody. All of you guys are trying to help educate us and our constituents. Since we're in Annapolis, I get my news feed out of Baltimore now, and so this morning I woke up on WBAL. The CEO of BGE was live and explaining this situation. I thought it was very admirable that he stood up as a leader. Maybe I'm missing it because I'm not over in the Eastern Shore, but has your CEO been out in the public and trying to defend this, or is he just pushing it down to you?
No, our senior leadership. So I will say, and I'm glad you brought that up, our efforts to communicate externally, they are from the top down at our company right now. So we're already an early starting shop. Our calls typically start at 0600 daily calls around operations. Our CEO is roll your sleeves up, very much into the intricacies, the weeds. He's literally grown up in the industry. So I can say without hesitation, we definitely have a CEO that's accessible and a really just a great human being. So we are obviously we're spread out, so we have a lot of service territory to cover, but this is a big issue. We recognize that, and absolutely, I don't want to speak for his scheduling, but certainly, if we have an opportunity, we're taking it right now to address this topic at every forum that our teams are at. So we're having folks that can come into the office to meet with us. We will go to you. We, of course, have our external events with our resources and our employees out talking with customers in the communities where they live. We certainly have been on media as well, giving interviews. So this is definitely not a situation where we want to not communicate. The more we can communicate this, the better, because really we do need to educate everybody on really what's truly behind this. So open offer, and hopefully my CEO doesn't get angry at me for this, but we are happy to help arrange any kind of meeting where it may be beneficial to hear from him directly. But he's certainly engaged a ton.
That's great to hear, particularly because somebody, as you opened up your presentation, said we're in an energy crisis now. So it does require leadership. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep.
Senator Mounts. And Johnny, before you chime in, we're going to let all of our members who want to talk. It's going to affect, I think, our calendar of events following, and we'll get to that. But I want to make, it's what's not lost on me through this. I'm not going to talk, but the fact that you're pretty much going to hear from every one of our members in one way, shape, or form certainly speaks to what's going on right now. And Senator Mounts, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And I understand everybody wants to speak, so I'll be very quick. I wanted to make sure that I can't see myself in the Zoom, but I got this flyer in the mail. It says, have you seen this? It was a mailer that went out, and it says your electric bill is going up this month again, ! BGE and Pepco are allowing PJM to raise your rates by failing to connect cheaper, clean energy to the grid. This was a mailer that was sent out. I was hoping maybe you could just give us a quick comment on that mailer. And then something that wasn't mentioned is what are the costs that are coming? From all the information I've picked up is that the bills are outrageous right now, but the costs are I've been told they're expected to increase again. Can you help me out with a little foresight there? And then a quick rebuttal to this mailer that was sent out. I believe it was district-wide. I'm not sure how many counties, but I know it was in more than 2 counties where this mailer was received. Is that familiar to you?
Yeah, so Senator Mounts, thank you. And, that mailer, we've also seen an increase in form letters. Certainly, if you get online, social media, you're going to see a lot of content on this topic. We do know that a lot of the escalated calls, complaints from our customers are 100% authentic. But we do know that there are some campaigns sort of behind the scenes that are organized to kind of send this type of information out. And some of that is not necessarily organic in terms of the complaints we're getting, but we have to treat each one of those as a true issue with an individual customer. So we do that. PJM is their own entity, so I should not speak on their behalf. But it is a topic that I think is already in the national space. There are a lot of governors across states that are engaging in communications about PJM and the topic that you mentioned. We're fortunate as our company. We are not in the generation industry right now. We are solely a transmission and distribution company. So we're focused strictly on safe and reliable electric service delivery. We do have to go to those markets to procure our SOS rate, right? That default standard service for our customers. And again, simple supply and demand without getting into like the whole PJM auction supply, part of the business. More generation options that we have, the cheaper that energy is for us to procure for our customers. And I do, I know that there are a lot of folks at the state level, national level, that are focused on that increase. That again is a pass-through cost for us to our customers. So we'd like it to be as affordable as possible for our customers. We present that on our bill, but
So
a lot of discussion upcoming.
Yeah, but my problem is that this mailer says that we need more clean energy, right? And you're telling me that we need more supply. And the two of those don't equate, right? And that's what's creating this price increase. And I don't think people are understanding that. And we're the only line of communication to constituents. And, our sole purpose isn't, we can't spend all of our time getting into the weeds on this. And I think it's incumbent upon you being in the middle. Your response is simple. Every time this happens, we go to Public Service Commission, we can justify the cost, we get the increase. But to the extent that you don't respond to things like this, I think you do become responsible because you're allowing the public perception to move forward that, oh, we need more solar panels to lower energy costs. And it doesn't work that way, And I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that and that your leadership is aware that not responding to this is, you're not directly responsible for that. I get that. These policies come through through different sources, but there's got to be a more concerted effort to directly, when you say we need more generation, people don't understand what that means. You have to break that down and communicate. And I would just urge you to take that public messaging to the highest priority, because what will happen is there'll be a double down, and the answer will be, we're going to lower your energy prices because we're going to mandate more renewable energy, right? And you can tell me, does that make sense?
I think, message received, Senator, first and foremost. And I think, we are and will be part of that conversation. All energy types for us help, right? We need that, we need energy in our region. I think with the continued increase in the siting of data centers, et cetera, we need those electrons. So whether that is, nuclear, coal, gas, solar, whatever that means, we need to be able to reliably serve our customers. That's what we're focused on.
Well, thank you for considering that, and hopefully that will make it to a priority level. But I appreciate you being here. I don't want to take any more time. Thank you.
Delegate Grice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think there's mainly two reasons for the higher, bills that folks are getting. Obviously, public policies in the past. There's a big supply demand issue right now for energy. And then the third piece too, and Marcus, you did mention, and there's a distinct difference between you and our co-ops. The co-ops are owned by their users, and whatever profits they earn, it's funneled back to them. For you guys, I was just looking at, I guess your financials will come out usually third week in February. So for 2023, for Exelon, their earnings per share went from $2.08 to $2.34. That's a 12.5% increase. And the problem that I have is that you guys are a monopoly, and it's a government sponsored monopoly. And so I guess my first question is, you're also one of the most regulated industries that's out there. Are there any caps at all that are imposed on you guys as far as, how much of a profit you can earn on your delivery of service?
So again, yeah, as you mentioned, we're a regulated industry. So our spending on maintaining, building out, substations, transmission projects, et cetera, those things have to be prudent and approved. Really it's meeting the needs of our customers and the region. So there are normal maintenance things that we do on cycle. There are growth related projects that we, if you have more development in an area, you're going to need bigger substations, those sorts of things. Poles need to be replaced, tree trimming, all of those types of activities. We have a lot of infrastructure. And we have a lot of activity in the Maryland Eastern Shore area. You all probably see it in your neighborhoods where you live. You know, there's growth here. There's economic development here. So we really are just trying to make sure we're planning and planful about our spend, work as efficiently as possible. And Exelon, we are a large company. We have multiple operating companies underneath of our parent Exelon. But we do have a lot of efficiencies that come along with that as well in terms of sharings on, you know, ways to save and really just optimizing and making sure that we're leveraging best practices and really being as tight as possible with the costs that we can control.
Well, Marcus, you being a publicly traded company, your fiduciary duty isn't to your customers. Your fiduciary duty isn't to our constituents. Your fiduciary duty is to whoever owns the stock of your company. So are there any limits as to how much of a profit you guys can actually make?
I am not, you know, with all of my experience in the company, system engineering, project management, a little bit of financial, a little regulatory, well, we could circle back. I'm not 100% sure of how that would be capped. Really being regulated, it's really the prudency of our projects, making sure that every project that we complete or spend money on really is necessary and needed for our community, for our customers.
Mr. Chairman, if at the end, I don't want to take up anybody else's time, but in our Republican caucus meeting, I don't know if you this past Tuesday, there were concerns about because of this increased supply, flat demand or flat supply increase in demand, with the potential of brownouts and blackouts on the horizon, and the most vulnerable industry probably in their entire state is our poultry industry to that, because if the power goes out, they run out of fuel for their backup generation. It's a matter of minutes before they start losing flocks. So I don't know if at the end we have time, if you could comment on that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And one thing I did just want to add that we are regulated, as you said, by the PSC, so they can cap how much we are able to earn. So again, we can follow up more in detail, but I would just note that we are capped.
Thank you, Ann.
Okay, next up is Delegate Sandra Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Delmarva Power, for being here today. A lot of my colleagues asked a lot of those questions that I had. One, I wanted to learn if the event that you had in Salisbury last Friday, did that yield the success or lack thereof for the number of customers to come out and ask questions about their bills? The second part I wanted to inquire about, I had some constituents are calling and emailing the Public Service Commission directly. Is that any benefit at all? And the question behind that is, does the Public Service Commission look at your income or how much you're gaining or not gaining every month? Is that a monthly assessment?
Three good questions. So the Salisbury event. So I was on site for that one, and I see a lot of names on here that spend a lot of time in Salisbury as well. So weather was a little choppy for us, but we did have a pretty steady stream of customers coming in. And for those that I spoke with, they were very thankful, you know, for our team for being there and having the doors open for them to, you know, come and sit down. So we do think that those are good events. And again, you know, having them in the various locations, we do use some data analytics to try to pinpoint areas that may have more customers that need assistance. So we'll come to that customer region. Hopefully, sometimes that's walkable for folks so that they can actually get to us. So we're going to continue that model. We do think that that helps.
Did you have a certain number that you were looking for, and how many constituents attended? And if you don't have that now, that's perfectly fine, but that's what I'm looking for that question. And then, and I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but we are on a huge time schedule here, and I'm going to allow you to answer the PSC question. But then my effort to engage and still get out to the community is to have a town hall meeting next week. And I would like to know if anyone from your team can participate on my town hall virtual meeting, February the 12th. From 6 to 7:30 p.m. If someone can give me a commitment today, that would be great, because I do want to get the information out, and feel free to go ahead and respond.
Yep, absolutely. So I'll be at the event on the 12th in person at the library. So after that, happy to hop on your town hall or one of our team members, but I know that I am available that day at that time at this point. So yes, and anything like that, any town halls, or meetings that you want to hold for your constituents and our customers, we will find someone that can be there and help support you and get that information out there. In terms of emailing the PSC directly, we do encourage customers to reach out to us first. We own that relationship with our customers. Again, we have a lot of information that our customer service representatives can provide to a customer in a conversation real time. So if you call us directly, we could say, hey, what happened, this day? When did we see the increase in usage? And really kind of, again, inform our customers of what usage patterns are occurring and explaining the why. That's very important. So the commission, of course, that is a body that customers can always reach out to. But really, if we're looking to get answers and detailed information, on your electricity usage, you're better off contacting us. And we, of course, have a large number of customer service representatives that can field those calls. So we don't want to bottleneck anybody by going to an outside entity, but they're certainly there. And then your question about the PSC of how often they take a look at our expenditures. I don't have the exact schedule for that. But again, when we have a rate case, that process can sometimes, it can take up to a year, in terms of the amount of information that's presented, the witness testimony that has to occur, the data requests, and all this stuff is public. So folks can absolutely get involved in that process and see how that works and see the details. So we are a regulated utility, and that means that really we're open. Our information is out there. We are investor owned, but we are a regulated entity.
And Marcus, I might just add on to that in terms of reporting with the commission. Every quarter we submit reports to them on our kind of financial position so they can see transparently into our financials every single quarter. And as a matter of our rate case process that Marcus noted, each year we have a process for formally reporting in our financial position to the commission that allows parties to review any costs we've incurred, investments we've made. So there's thorough review of all of those expenditures that occur through that process each year, as well as on top of that quarterly reporting that they have access to every quarter.
Thanks, Rob.
Okay. Apologies to Delmarva Chicken Association. We're still planning on getting to you. Just to understand that this is a critical issue for our members to participate in and get answers. Senator Carozza, you need to.
Thank you, and I want to thank all the reps on the phone on the virtual meeting, along with the individual constituents that are contacting each one of us. I wanted to associate myself with Senator Mounce's comments on the organized efforts. I am aware of two that I wanted to share with you and would also make the request that there's some type of formal follow-up by Delmarva Power. One of them is I guess a petition that's been put together by an organization, MoveOn.org petition to stop Delmarva Power from ripping off taxpayers. That's the name of their petition. Supposedly, they have over 10,000 signatures. It's a Mohammed Adil Khan that has organized it, and we can pass along the information. My request would be that there be some type of formal response to him. The other organized effort that I'm aware of is a Facebook group, Delmarva Power Victims, with I believe about over 3,600 members. That again, I agree at a leadership level and a formal response from Delmarva Power, so that all of those members or Facebook members or petition signers are aware of the individual assistance that you will provide to each individual constituent, which has been the case when we've contacted you. So, and then one last request that I'm making is, it's significant that we have Delmarva Chicken on our agenda next. And one of the first issues they brought up to me on Chicken Day earlier this week were high energy costs. And of course, our poultry growers are already, our industry is already dealing with the challenge of the avian flu. So ask for some special focus on assisting our poultry growers and industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And we will follow up on those two items that you highlighted. I appreciate that.
Delegate Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. And thank you, Delmarva, for being here. I am one of your customers. So very familiar with your billing. Thank you. It is very understandable. So I hear you saying, obviously, Delmarva Power is a supplier of energy, and you're not an energy generator. Okay. So when we have less generation, which we currently do, I believe that is also what raises your prices because of the pass-through and the delivery. Is that correct?
So yes, the supply portion, right? We procure that energy, right, through that auction supply process, and those costs we do not control. That's tied to really that supply and demand of generation.
Right. And you are decoupled, so you are regulated.
Correct.
So do you believe that Delmarva would support some type of because I do have a piece of legislation in that would allow utility companies to actually generate their own energy, whether it's nuclear, natural gas, small modulars, whatever the case is. And the real question, and I mean, if you support it, that's wonderful. But the main question is, if that were to happen and that would pass, do you believe that, first of all, energy prices would go down because there would be more supply? And then also, would it be cheaper? Because right now, the way that Maryland is, businesses to come and generate that energy is not currently happening, and it probably won't in years. Now, again, this is going to take a long time. But if utility companies were allowed to do it, would it be cheaper because you already have the investment money, you have the backing, and also would it be done quicker? So cheaper and quicker.
So yeah, great question. And I think there's a phrase that you probably have heard nationally: resource adequacy, right, in our industry. And what that means is making sure that we have enough electricity to meet the needs of our customers and our businesses in the region. And right now, we do have a national issue regarding the availability of enough generation and just pure electrons being able to get and serve our customers. So from our standpoint, it's really all about being reliable and being safe and being able to meet the demands or the electric needs of our customers. So we are definitely supportive of additional generation, whether that's owned by the utilities, whether that's outside generation in terms of economic development opportunities here. We do, from just a general system reliability standpoint, we need more generation. And I can't speculate on how the markets would react, but certainly, and again, I kind of simplified to just that pure supply and demand statement. The more generation we have, the more affordable energy becomes. So on that auction market that we have to operate in.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, you're welcome. All right, so this will be the last question. I'll make a statement after the last question if we just make it brief. I do want to give DCA an opportunity to speak. They'll have 15 minutes to do that. I know delegates will have to go to the House floor. Senator Croza is going to carry the meeting over and lead it for us while we're trying to close out the meeting. So last question, Delegate Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Second bite at the apple very quickly. And hearing Senator Croza, I think that puts in perspective the scale this is for us. When 10,000 people are signing a petition, if you could send us a mock bill, like January 23, all the components of the bill, what it would be, January 24, all the components of the bill would have been January 25 for 1,000 units. That way we can explain to the customers, here it is without any difference in temperature. This is apples for apples. I think it would be a great tool for all of us to be able to use so we can explain to the customer exactly what portion of the bill is impacting them the most. And then lastly, your comment about the Public Service Commission. If they're the ones that are approving all this, which we all know, maybe at some point, the PSC may be out of touch as to the severity of the impact. And, maybe we need to be sharing some of these with the PSC so that they realize the scale of what this is and how it's impacting Marylanders. We're the front line. And I don't know if the powers to be are really aware as to what this is doing to our Maryland families. So I thank you for that information. And I think it would be a great tool.
Thank you, Delegate Hartman. And yes, we can definitely send you that type of breakdown and any special requests like that from this group. Please work with our team. We are actually, our corporate communications team is working to put on our website that mock bill that I shared with you, or we have a mock bill with the itemized lines. So that will be available online for everybody. I'm hearing, by early next week or mid next week, they should have that worked out and actually presented. So you can go straight to our website for that. And then, just one comment on the commission. It is a very highly scrutinized process. So, again, when we are seeking approval to increase anything, it is a long and arduous process. So I don't want anybody to think that that's an easy thing for us to do. So, but appreciate your comments. And thank you again for having us. We appreciate the opportunity, and we're certainly we're willing to come back or come to you and continue the conversation with our customers or your constituents.
So Marcus and Ann, let me just speak on behalf of the Eastern Shore delegation. We thank you for going through this with us today. I believe we were giving you a respectful response that we're hearing from our citizens and reflecting on it, each of our experiences. We do respect and appreciated the professional nature of the dialogue that you brought forward today. It was informational, it was helpful. I'm just going to make a statement. Delegate Arentz and I and Senator Crows, the Delegate Mounts, have jurisdiction on energy policy. I serve on the Public Utilities Subcommittee. And when I'm listening to all this, it's not lost on me that after 11 years, the state of Maryland has gotten rid of generation. I mean, I'm getting ready to make a political statement. You as a regulated utility have to learn and live within the world we, the legislature, give you. I think that's the thing that you would say if you could. But what I would say is that as we're sitting here in 2025, it's not lost on me that once you get past the budget, the number one issue that we're going to have to deal with in session this year is energy. We are going to have a big bill. It's going to be a leadership bill. I hope that when we're done passing that bill, that it's more than just conjecture, more than just fluff, that hopefully we get to a point where Maryland gets serious about generation and that we get serious about natural gas as being a component of that. Last thing I'll say, I live in Hebron. I drive by that Vienna station. I don't know who owns it now. I thought it was NRG at one time. What I remember out of that station is that when it got real cold, it turned on. Now, I got to imagine the reason why it turned on is because that was the cheapest way to get fast energy production to folks on the Eastern Shore. And the state of Maryland, I believe, has just basically shut that down. And that's just on the Eastern Shore. My guess is throughout the state of Maryland, when we talk about Brandon Shores, when we talk about all these different, energy generators that are gone from Maryland, that the reason why we have such a problem is because we just don't generate. We went to PJM last fall. We understand there was a capacity market auction. I don't know the exact percentages, but I believe it was 700-800% increase for Maryland because we have to pay for generation out of our state. I want citizens, to the extent we're listening to this, to understand that there's another side to this story about energy. And yes, these are monopolies. Yes, these are organizations that are regulated by the Public Service Commission, which is a creation of the legislature. But at some point, policymakers need to be able to step back and say, what can we do? What can we do while we're in a 90-day session to help our citizens? And I don't think we can be silent on the subject of energy generation, which would help immensely with this conversation. You don't have to respond to it. I'm just telling you how I feel about it. And I'll close by saying thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, sir.
So much.
Okay. The delegates, we're going to stay on until we have to go to the floor. Senator Carrozza is going to lead the meeting because they have a different schedule. But Delmarva Chicken Association, Holly Porter, you have issues just as important and critical with the avian influenza. And I thank you sincerely for being patient with us today as we kind of captured a current event issue that had to be heard at this particular meeting. And thank you for your patience. The floor is yours until we close the meeting today.
No problem, Mr. Chairman. Thank you again. I appreciate the opportunity to be on, and you're absolutely right. A number of our growers and members are Delmarva Power customers as well, too. So this was a very important topic. Again, my name is Holly Porter. I'm the Executive Director of the Delmarva Chicken Association. I have with me our board president, Mary Lou Brown. I'm going to share my screen. We do have a PowerPoint presentation, which I did send over because we will plan to go through it extremely quickly. So you have the version that you can simply share out. So I'm going to turn it over to Mary Lou. Mary Lou, are you muted?
Sorry about that. Yes, I was. I just realized that. Hi, Mr. Chairman, members of the Eastern Shore Delegation. I apologize. My name is Mary Lou Brown, and I'm a farmer in Dorchester County. And I'm not going to go through the rest of that, but let's go to slide 2. When we talk about the Delmarva chicken community, we are talking about over 1,200 family farms, which grow for 5 chicken companies, and there are nearly 18,000 employees in those hundreds of allied businesses and partners within our universities and government. Compared to the other states in the United States, we are blessed to have 5 poultry companies on the shore: Allen's, Amick, Mount Air, Purdue, and Tyson Foods. This gives our growers options to grow for others. There are numbers, these are numbers hot off the press. The chicken companies raised 613 million Delmarva raised chickens. 4.6 billion pounds of chickens is processed every year. Over 1,200 families, almost 5,000 chicken houses, and then there are almost 18,000 chicken company employees. It's $1.3 billion is spent on corn, soybeans, and wheat and other feed ingredients, which gives Delmarva Chicken a gross national product of $4.8 billion. We have some breakdown from the state of Maryland as well. Maryland and Delaware are nearly split with number of houses, growers, and square footage, and the number of jobs on the federal and state and local taxes is not a small number. The chicken certainly is a big part of the Eastern Shore Maryland economy. As you can well see from this slide, where we are with bird capacity, chicken houses, and growers, as well as the amount of the economic impact involved, with over $50,800 in wages and benefits, $280 million in federal taxes, $255 million in state and local taxes. And a big part of the agriculture economy at 44% of ag sales in Maryland. It is the largest segment of the Maryland agriculture community. Thank you, Holly.
So these next few slides, I'm going to go through fairly quickly because, again, these are some trends that we have. As you can see, for the number of chickens that are produced, we did have a 10-year period where we saw a decrease, primarily due to some high grain prices, as well as some turmoil throughout the national outlook of our chicken industry. But over the past 5 years, we'd certainly have come back to be pretty much at level, and we've picked up from where we left off with some of the COVID dips as well, too. And of course, as the trends have continued, our pounds of meat have increased. A lot of that due to better housing technology, bird health management, and the general marketplace that we have here on Delmarva. And that same technology has also allowed for us to produce the same number of birds that you saw, with actually about 14% less houses than we had 25 years ago on Delmarva, and 50% less growers than we had 25 years ago. Again, just like everything with agriculture, we are continuing to do more with less. But it's important that we continue to do more because across the US per capita, the amount of chicken consumption has increased, and we're at nearly a little over 100 pounds per year that the U.S. consumer will eat. So let me go ahead and get into the topic that I'm sure you guys have heard quite a bit about. And of course, we've been talking a lot about. There are definitely a lot of hot topics, but high path avian influenza is our biggest issue and concern right now. Just as a recap, we do have 9 cases across Delmarva. 5 of those cases are here in Maryland. Something I'm even more excited to share is that as of today, we actually have 4 control area releases that have occurred, with the 4th one occurring today in Queen Anne's County. These control area releases are really important milestones, as it removes any restrictions from the farms that are within that 0 to 10K circle that I know Secretary Addix and MDA folks have shared. This means that birds can be placed back on the farms without any audits, and no additional permitting is required. One of the greatest concerns that you probably hear from growers is, how long am I going to be without birds? That's the question we get most of the time. And there have been rumors out there that it could be months and months. And as you can see, this really is not true, as long as certain steps occur, which so far they have been occurring. So again, currently all 4 of our control areas that have been released so far were within less than 1 month of the detection date, which again is huge. And of course, there are always circumstances where those could be extended, but I think that that really is impressive. And really the reason why that happens is because of this unified command system that we have. And really, that's the partnership between all of the states, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, through USDA and through the industry. This command system, it includes, within the incident, includes a number of areas. We have incident commanders, we have operations team, tactics team, planning team, joint information team, liaisons, such as myself. I am the chicken industry liaison for this incident. So if anyone has a military background, some of those titles may sound familiar. And this unified command is not only working within the departments of agriculture of all of the states, but they're also working with other public agencies such as natural resources, environment, public health, emergency management. And not only with the states, but of course in Maryland, a lot of things are local or county driven. So they're also making sure that we're working within with the local folks as well. All of our liaisons are the point and the key points of contact for these public agencies in the incident, and they allow for communications to occur and flow back and forth between the two. As the industry liaison, I've been constantly communicating with our key chicken industry employees. And then on the flip side, we're also trying to communicate and share information out to our membership. While there are challenges that do occur sometimes, especially when you're trying to work across multiple states, I really think this has been a very effective system in us being able to get to our goals of virus elimination, cleaning, disinfecting, and even more importantly, the continuity of business, which is so important for everyone as well too. So I just wanted to share a little bit of perspective about AI, again, from our perspective on the industry side. Of course, some of the biggest messaging that we can continue to share with our members is the importance of biosecurity. You've heard that term used numerous times, whether you've visited a farm or whether you've just been talking and seeing things in the news. We can't stress enough the biosecurity. We know this virus is very hot and very heavy with our waterfowl. It is here in the area. Every time you look up, every time you see a field of snow geese, other geese, there's a really good potential that the virus is right there. So the importance of house dedicated footwear, of limiting visitors on the farms, of all things that we can do and our growers can do to try to protect and make sure that they're not taking the virus into or across that line of separation into the chicken houses. Finally, I will just share that we do have a number of legislative priorities. And again, most of you know Grayson Middleton, our Government Affairs Manager, and he is around and always here to help. We are excited that the exceptional hauling permit, which was one of our top priorities, has been moving forward, was heard in the Senate committee, is through Senate, and actually was heard in the House committee yesterday, I believe. And so again, we are pleased with that. Climate legislation is important. Of course, we want to make sure that any solutions, any discussions are science-based and economically feasible. I think, again, everyone can understand the why on that with our prior speakers. Same conversation with solar. Again, we want solar as an option, especially we have a number of growers who would love to have solar on their farms directly. We have concerns about grid capacity, and we, of course, would not want to have prime ag land being used as solar siting. So we want to make sure that we're having good conversations on that. PFAS, of course, is a big topic and a big conversation. We support phasing out PFAS, but we also want to make sure that there are alternative options. As many folks will know, not all things that contain PFAS are necessarily bad. So we want to make sure that, again, we're having some science-based decisions around that. That was the quick short that I did in, I believe, much less than 15 minutes, and we're happy to answer questions. Or again, I know everyone has to move on, and we're always available for questions.
Well, first of all, Holly, I want to thank you, and I want to thank Mary Lou, not only for your presentation today, but your constant presence, which is so important during the session, for you to continue to educate on the poultry industry. You had a great turnout for Chicken Day this past week. And last night, I saw many of your members at Taste of Maryland Agriculture. I think we're 800 or 900 people up there last night. So we appreciate, and these updates are very timely. I also appreciate that you flag specific legislative issues for us. And I will be following up as many of those go through my committee. So we can continue to work those offline. I do want to call on Senator Mounts, who also was up for both Taste of Maryland Agriculture last night and Chicken Day. So Senator Mounts.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Holly, great to see you. And Mary Lou, you've had a busy week up here in Annapolis. Thank you for your time talking to people and just focusing them on things that are so important, on the family farm and on our family farms and throughout the shore. Something that's come up routinely, and I've been on the record talking about this, and this relates to my experience with AI and dates back years. I mean, I remember at one time I was a staffer for then Governor Ehrlich, and there was a AI detection. Lou Riley was the Secretary of Agriculture, and Dr. John Brooks was the Deputy Secretary. I believe Governor Ehrlich was there on site to inspect what was going on. The area was quarantined. The birds were handled. It was a very limited situation, but it was a serious one. Today is very different in that when we're talking about, you see a flock of wild geese, migratory birds, ducks, geese, whatever, the potential could be there's AI there. And what's happened is you've had a situation where the Department of Natural Resources has a response protocol that is different than the Department of Agriculture. And we've also had farm birds with AI. And the Department of Agriculture has followed its traditional protocol. And I've been critical of the state's response so far in that, you have two agencies working on this issue. And I've been adamant. I know Governor Moore, I've not seen Governor Moore on the shore, and I have not seen him sort of get, what do you say, insert his oars into these waters. But there seems to be a little bit of confusion, not a lot, a little bit, in that you have DNR working on some of this and Department of Agriculture. Secretary Addix has devoted 150% of his time to be focused on this. And I've been an advocate for, more public outreach, more clarity, so everyone understands that the Department of Agriculture is in charge of responding and dealing with AI. And this is from talking to different people, to my own perception, things like that. This isn't critical of what's occurred in response. I just think in general, now that we have this AI in the wild, particularly for our farmers, they need to know if there's a wild flock of birds within a half mile that have been detected with AI. If you've got a farm flock, you need to know. And I don't know necessarily if the government is telling people about that. And my thought is if there was one entity in charge of this, there would be better communication. And in particular, our farmers would know what's going on. I believe with a farm flock situation, the farmers do know because they can talk to one another. They're in the same business and the information is held within the industry. However, in the wild bird situation, DNR doesn't necessarily inform the farmers of what they've found in these fields and things like that. And I was interested to know your perception, your reaction to my perception about this issue.
Sure. So, I guess a couple points. So I will say that when it comes to farmers knowing about even in the wild birds, so if you're a chicken grower, you've known for years that the waterfowl are carriers of AI. They have been for a number of years. What's been slightly different this year is just the amount of virus that's out there, which is now actually having the birds themselves getting sick. Before they were carriers, but they weren't getting sick. Now our snow geese, our Canadian geese, eagles, birds like that are actually dying from it. So I think from the farmer's perspective, to some extent, they knew. In late December, we actually, there was quite a die-off of birds in Delaware that we shared right away with our members then. So that they were made aware. And then little by little, it has obviously spread throughout all of the states and Maryland as well too with that. So I think that from the farmer's perspective, what we are telling everyone is if you look up and you see a bird, you just anticipate there's avian influenza. I mean, that is the messaging that we've been putting out now for well over 6 weeks. I'm not sure that any additional press from DNR would have necessarily changed that, at least from farmers' perspectives. I will say that we have been, they are part of our unified command in the sense of having a liaison, having their public information folks involved. And I know that our communications groups have worked with them quite a bit in trying to get information pushed out to registered hunters, to the public. They've also partnered with USDA in trying to increase resources. I think that's the biggest challenge right now. And I'll very selfishly say that I want as many ag resources focused to our commercial broiler industry, more so than us trying to go out and do anything with, the waterfowl, of course, unless they are, falling next to our chicken houses as well, too. And that can be concerning. But I think that DNR has tried to use what limited resources they've had, to use USDA to help them with some resources and to prioritize where it is they're going out and trying to get the waterfowl that may be dying off as well too. I think just unfortunately right now it's a lot. It's a lot both from the dead snow geese as it is for those of us working the incidents as well. So I don't know if I answered your question, but again, I think there are always opportunities for improvement. And so I'm sure whenever an incident like this happens, we always have this wonderful thing called a hot wash where we do a lot of discussions. And I think there will be some opportunities for discussion more so in the future too.
Senator, I just want to add that I feel like they have helped us tremendously. I know what's going on.
Your interaction with the Department of Natural Resources, is that what you're referencing, Mary Lou?
I'm referencing the fact that I seem to know when there's wild birds in the area that have it. they put Blackwater out there. I'm assuming they put it out immediately, and I'm hoping that's right, but I don't know that for sure. But I feel like we have the information out here. I really do. They do put it out. They do say, hey, we found it here. So we know. And like Holly said, we look up in the sky and we know we don't trust those birds. So that's what it comes down to.
I appreciate that, and that's I wanted to get your reaction to that inquiry, and that's very helpful because I think my next question would have been, and I know the answer to it. It would have been if you wanted to know where there were birds with AI, where would you go to get that information? And I think your answer would be we assume all of them to have AI, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So that's just the way it is.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I also wanted to give a shout out to Grayson with Delmarva Chicken because he is very visible in the committees and around the State House. And Senator Mounts doesn't have any more questions. And if there's not anything else that you want to add from the Delmarva Chicken Association, I'm going to call on our federal representatives if they're still on the line. Alyssa from Senator Van Hollen's office. There you are.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to let everyone know that our office is in the process of having congressionally directed spending meetings right now to talk through any applications with any local governments or nonprofits. So please reach out to me if you're interested in setting up a meeting with our appropriations staff. We can help give you some pointers for maybe some best practices for the application and talk through any options. So we're anticipating that our portal should be opening up very soon. So just wanted to flag that. And the other thing I just wanted to mention, there's just, so much happening right now on the federal level. But if you're interested in what Senator Van Hollen has been doing, especially in response to the recent executive orders, please sign up for our newsletter and check out our social media posts. We're putting out a lot of information out of those channels. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that update, especially on, the alert to organizations with the congressionally directed spending. Appreciate that. And do we have a representative from Senator Alsobrooks' office on the on our virtual meeting? If they're here, I want to make sure they're called upon. Okay, Alyssa, you don't see
I'm not seeing anyone.
Okay, and I do see that we do have Jacqueline from Congressman Andy Harris's office. If you could give us an update, we'd appreciate that.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you so much for having me this morning. Just a few pieces of news from our office. We did send out an informational letter related to the OPM Fork in the Road email, and we're basically directing federal workers with questions because there's a lot of detailed questions they have that might be specific to their agency to contact their HR department for accurate information about their particular department. So far, 60,000 workers have accepted the buyout, but a federal judge has paused the deadline. So we'll see what happens next week with that. We are providing information to constituents on free tax assistance. So if anybody's looking for federal tax help, please direct them to our office. The AARP has various locations around the state that offer these services that we can direct them to based on their location. And the congressman is concerned, I know a lot of people on this call are, about the governor's proposed tax increases. So we're watching that to see what happens this session with that. And then in support of the Maryland House Republican Caucus, Congressman Harris sent a letter to EPA Administrator Zeldin at the end of last week to rescind the waiver that has Maryland following California energy standards. So, and that's it. Other than that, if you have any concerns at the federal level, always feel free to reach out to our office, and we're very glad to have you as partners and to be able to work with you.
Thank you for that update. That's very helpful. And to all our participants in our Eastern Shore delegation meeting today and in the past, we really appreciate your engagement. You certainly don't have to wait until the weekly delegation meeting to bring issues to our attention. We take pride as a delegation in having an open door policy. And again, I think we covered a key priority for us today in our meeting, and appreciate the presentations by Delmarva Chicken Association And at this point, since we have run over, I am going to adjourn the meeting for the good of the order. So everybody have a safe weekend.